I'm going to do my best over here. Let me know if you guys can see this. Yeah. And
Yes.
forgive my slide deck over here on the side. But I can't do full screen and share screen and then still see you guys. And I want to be able to see you. So I'll go right to here. Obviously, today we're talking about building a team and all that good stuff. This is me, since Amy's going to be so kind as to introduce me. I'm half teasing you. My name's Christina Arias. I am an executive business and mindset coach. I have a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. So think of that as um, team building, the hiring process, the recruiting process, the establishing culture, all of those things, all wrapped up in a master's degree. I've been a licensed real estate agent and broker since 2004. I'm also the owner and co-founder for Growth Minded Talent Solutions, which is a company that we go out for the people that don't want to do the recruiting process themselves to hire people onto their team. We go out and find talent for you and vet them for you. And then I also am the co-owner of our franchise for Cyberbacker up in Oregon. Kind of some fun facts. As you can tell there by my picture, I'm a huge NASCAR fan, college football, love to travel and have some fun, which Amy and I do our best to have fun whenever we hang out and get together. And then I push her and I help her grow. That's the business coach piece right there. If you want to get a hold of me afterwards, my contact information's on here. Amy, I'm sure you can get that for them as well if they want to follow up. But otherwise, let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to be talking today, obviously, about building a team. As interactive as you guys want to make this, otherwise, it'll be a really short, like 10-15 minute monologue of me talking. So feel free to interject, raise your hand, throw some questions into the chat. Amy, if you can keep an eye on that. But basically, we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about the benefits and challenges of building a team, especially in a shifting market. How to know it's time to build a team, and who to hire first, and what the heck do you do with those people when you've hired them and you're onboarding them. I built my team back. I started in 2006 building my team. I think most of you have heard the rumors about what happened in '08 here in the Phoenix market. It was definitely fun. And my team actually managed to grow and thrive through that last shift. So there's a lot of things that I learned in that. I didn't always do it perfect. Please don't hear me say that. Just know that the team that I built through trial and error, there were a lot of things hands-on that I learned. And I'm happy to share those kind of insights, tips, whatever it might be, if you guys have any questions, or maybe you've tried to build a team already and it didn't go so well, or maybe you made that first hire and it's not what you thought it would be. Maybe you're scared to bring on your first hire because you've heard, horrible stories from other people. So wherever you guys want to take this conversation, again, make it as interactive as you'd like to. And Amy, if there's something that you feel like I need to add in, if I'm going too fast, slow me down, please ask me a question or throw something at me. All right.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
So I wanted to start with what the benefits are of building a team and kind of the challenges that come with that. As a coach, one of the things that I find a lot of people haven't thought through before they begin building a team. Like sometimes it might look like I'm just going to do this so I can like see your guys' faces. Sometimes it might look like, oh, hey, Amy, you like to ride horses? You know what? I used to have a pony. How about if, since we have so much in common, we go ahead and partner up and let's do real estate together? Have you guys ever heard of somebody doing something crazy like that? Maybe some of you already have. My very, very first person that joined my team, we met in what you like a basic intro to real estate class at the brokerage we were with. And that's basically how we got into business together. She liked to do open houses. I would die before I'd do another open house. And she had a solution for a problem that I had. Right. So we got into business together. We also got out of business together really quickly because that wasn't the best way to do it, right? It wasn't the most effective way. And I've learned over the years that a lot of people, that's kind of what we do, rather than slowing down and going, hold on a second, what problem is it that I'm looking to solve? what is it that I need taken off of my plate? Or what is it that if I woke up and I never had to do it again, my heart would be so happy that I never had to do that again? For me, it was open houses, by the way. That was number one. Number two was showing buyers properties. Those were the two things I wanted off of my plate more than anything else. And then I realized what I really needed off my plate was paperwork before my clients. So I readjusted. But what is that problem? Maybe we don't have any documented and automated systems and processes, right? We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Everything lives in our head, and we hope that things don't fall off of our plate and that we don't forget about something along the way. Maybe we have too many leads and not enough time to actually convert them. Now, with that, I might also add, we might not have enough leads, but we might also have too many leads, but we have no idea which ones are qualified and which ones aren't qualified, which ones we need to be nurturing, which ones we need to be dealing with right now because they're right now business, right? Who knows? I don't know about you guys, but I can remember the day my husband back in the day, he looked at me and he said, wow, I really wish that you treated me as nicely as you treat your clients, because I was working all of the time. And whenever my phone rang or an email came in or a text came in, no matter what we were doing together as a family, I allowed it to step in and interfere. And if my family stepped in and interfered with me taking care of a client, my family, sadly, they were the ones that got the brunt end of that, right? It resonated. I found some more leverage. But also, maybe we're not clearly communicating our standards and expectations with our clients or with our co-broke agents. If I'm making myself available 24/7, then I am working all the time. And I'm not saying to my clients or a co-broke agent or whomever it might be, listen, here are my business hours. And outside of business hours, there's no such thing as an emergency in real estate, and I'm not going to be available for you. Right. So that might be a problem that we're looking to solve. And I don't know about you guys, but organization of the database and lead flow, that was probably the last thing I ever got solved. And thank goodness I found a really amazing executive assistant that took that off my plate, because I was never going to bring that organization in to the database just based on results. It's not that I wasn't capable. It's just I wasn't going to slow down long enough to do it. So when you guys see this list, my question back for you is, what other problems do you have in your business right now that you would want to add on to this list that you think you can solve by building a team, if any? What did I leave out?
Anybody? Okay.
No? Just throwing it out there.
Those are the problems usually.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear that. They said that those are the problems. Like everything kind of falls under those
That's
categories.
pretty much it. All right, cool. Awesome. So what the heck do we do with it, right? And so for me, when I look at these problems right here, as a coach, I go, okay, so if these are the problems sitting in front of you, and it might not be all of these, right? It might not be all of these combined together, but which problem is creating the most stress in your world? And then allowing that to be what guides you through whether or not it's time to build a team and who that first hire is going to be. All right. Then the next piece, and if I were doing this at a certain other brokerage that I work at as well, I would draw a triangle of this. But think about this in a hierarchy. One of the challenges of building a team is looking in the mirror and having a really serious conversation with yourself about where your leadership skills are. How well are you leading yourself? Where's your self-discipline? Where are your habits? Things like that. Because again, one of those challenges I see that comes in a lot is people go right into a partnership or they go right into hiring somebody, adding them onto their team, and their leadership skills are not at a level where they're leading themselves well. Therefore, it's translating over into not leading other people well. And then a team will crumple from that. So we want to really, as we build those leadership skills and start talking about building a team, we want to go, okay, how am I doing on leading myself? And again, it's a lifelong journey. So don't go, well, I have to be perfect at that before I hire somebody. But how am I doing on that? And if I had somebody that I'm going to be having daily and weekly meetings with, helping them succeed in their role, what skill set do I need to develop and focus on in order to be able to have the conversations that need to be had? Because it's really great when we sit there and go, oh, Amy, you like to ride horses. I used to have a pony. Let's get into business together. That works really, really great until, I don't know, we can't agree on the source of a lead. And I think I should get paid more than she does. And now we get to have a money conversation that's really uncomfortable and awkward because we chose not to have the conversation up front. Or Amy's slacking off because she's going out and riding horses all the time. Not that she would ever do that. But she's off riding horses all the time. And I'm like, hey, dude, I sold my pony so I could go sell more real estate and have more time. And all you want to do is go ride horses. And she's like, yeah, but you knew that about me. That's how we met. And now we have to have a difficult conversation. And maybe my leadership skills aren't in a place where I'm comfortable having that conversation. So I avoid it. And then the next thing I know, this wonderful partnership that I decided to get into is falling apart because those leadership skills, those tough conversation skills aren't there yet. And by the way, this goes right along with how good do we negotiate with our clients? How good are we at setting standards and expectations and actually holding them in place with our clients, right? We start with that self-development on those things. Because I can say to Amy, hey, listen, I'm not available after 8 p.m. Monday through Friday for anything business related. But the moment she calls me and I answer my phone at 9 o'clock at night is the moment that I told her that even though I said it was after 8, I wasn't available, she now knows that I'm really available whenever she wants me to be. Because I broke my own expectation and standard for myself, right? What comes to mind, you guys, when we talk about leadership skills at this level? What thoughts or questions do you have, if any?
How do you know when your leadership skills are at the level of being able to successfully run a team? Like what would you say is the rubric to go by?
Oh my goodness, great question. Is it Ramsey? Is that right? I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see faces. It's such a great question. One of the places that I look as a coach is looking at what are the, in an ideal world, right? Like if you could actually create your ideal schedule for work, for health, for family, for the things that you want to balance and counterbalance in your world. If you created your ideal schedule, do you have the self-discipline to stick to it and adhere to it, let's say 70 to 80% of the time? Because I do understand in real estate, while there's no emergency that really can't wait for an extra hour or something, at the same time, there are some urgent things that come up sometimes that are real problems, right? So in order to lead ourselves, are we leading ourselves in that way that when I say no, I mean no? Do I know what those boundaries are? Has our spouse ever looked at us and said, wow, I really wish you would treat me as well as you do a client? I probably wasn't leading myself very well at that point in time, right? What are my priorities? Now, that doesn't mean that if I'm not at 100% on that, I'm not ready to lead someone else. But am I working on creating that awareness and then doing something about it? The other piece would be, if I'm just being really transparent, is if you look at the conversations that you're willing to have with your clients and with a co-broke agent, are you avoiding them because you don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation? Or are you recognizing it's an uncomfortable conversation and you're doing it anyway? And that might come to kids, spouses, family members, friends, not just business, right? Because when we get into business with other people, it's kind of like a marriage, right? That there are going to be these things that we think they should know and then they don't know. And we need to address them, because if we don't address them, they're just going to get worse. Did that answer your question, Ramsey? Does that? Yeah, great question. Anyone else? All right. I'll go back to sharing my screen. Amy, if there's somebody in the room saying something, just so you know I can't hear. So if somebody chimes in, just interrupt me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. So next is how to know it's time to build a team. So number one, we want to make sure, Ramsey, to your point, right, the leadership skills are there, that we're in the process of developing them. But two, do we have clarity on the problem that we're solving? Sorry, I'm kind of going backwards on this, but let's make sure that we know the problem that we're solving. You know what? I want more time back in my life. Okay, great. What is it that's interfering with my time? It's all the paperwork. It's following up on all the deals. It's I'm out dealing with right now business and I don't have time to actually follow up with leads. What is it, right? What is that problem? The other piece, and this one, it's so ambiguous, and it's individualized, for lack of a better way to put it. You're doing all you can do and or that you know how to do, and not everything is getting done. The reason why this is so challenging to define is because each one of us has our own ceiling or level of achievement that we hit before we're doing all the things we know how to do and that we can do. So some people, like sometimes people go, well, how many deals should I be doing before I need to hire somebody? Well, I don't know. How much can you handle, right? And some people, they've got 2 deals in escrow, they've got 5 active buyers and 2 listings, and they're drowning. And then there's other people, they've got 10 deals in escrow, 20 active listings, and 50 active buyers, and they're thriving and they're happy, right? So every single one of us has a different ceiling. And depending on where that ceiling is, that's going to define whether or not me as an individual, if I'm actually doing all the things I can do and that I know how to do, and there's still stuff being left on the table. Okay. So you're leaving money on the table is in multiple levels here. One, are we getting to all of our leads, and are all of our leads getting converted? Are all of our listings and listing leads potentially, are we having the conversations that we need to be having, especially in a shifting market, on pricing and things like that, so that our listings get sold as quickly as possible, right? Do we have that? That's money that we might leave on the table. The other piece of it, and I talk a little bit about this later on, is understanding what our time is worth. And are we doing things that we could hire somebody to do for 15, 20 bucks an hour, and yet we think that we need to do them, and we don't understand that if we were doing what we do as real estate agents, that our time might actually be worth 500 bucks an hour, and we're doing $20 an hour jobs, right? Where is that we're leaving that money on the table? So one of the ways we know it's time to build a team is we have clarity on the problem we need solved. We're doing all we can or know how to do, and not everything's getting done. And in one way or another, we're leaving money on the table. All right. So based on that, who the heck do we hire first? One of my favorite references is the 80-20 rule. I'm not going to get into the whole background of that, but basically the 80-20 rule says that 80% of our money or our production is a result of 20% of our tasks. So if I take that into real estate, my 20% that leads to my 80% is my lead generation, my lead follow-up, setting and going on real estate related sales appointments, right? Listings and buyers, negotiating contracts, and making sure that I'm staying up on my skill set that I need for the market of the moment. If I take this and I translate it into pretend like we worked a 40-hour work week, 8 to 5, right? One of those things, which we all know we don't do that in real estate. But if I look at it that way, that would mean if I work that 40-hour work week, 32 hours of my time in that 40-hour work week are spent lead generating, lead follow-up, setting and going on appointments, mastering my skill set, and negotiating contracts. And 8 hours of it is spent doing all the administrative stuff. If there's no way that I could ever actually manage that based on where my production is, then I probably want to start looking at who can take on all of that administrative stuff that needs to be done. Without it, my business starts to go backwards, but it's not actual revenue producing activities, right? Because if I just want to do admin work, then I probably just want to go do that for somebody else and join their team. But since I'm an entrepreneur and I want to do sales, I probably need to start hiring somebody to take that stuff off my plate. The next piece we want to do is actually sit down and take the time to build out our vision for our business, where we see it. And I'm not going to say, you guys, you could do 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you want to take it out further than a year from now to really get clarity on, do I just always want it to be me and an admin person helping me out? Or do at some point in time in the future, do I want to get buyers off of my plate? Do I want to get listings off of my plate? Do I want to just manage a team of people that go out and do all of the work and I get to be the business owner, right? Like, where is that for you? What's your vision? And what's the organizational chart to actually help you build that and get there? From that, we work backwards into, oh, well, based on that, these would be my first 3 key hires for who I would add into my business, right? So that we like to call it duct taping. So I'm not duct taping this team together with no purpose and no vision. And then calculating what's your time worth. I want to have a quick conversation with this. And Amy, I'm going to pick on you. For you, on a production level, just because I don't know your market there, what's the average sales price and or average commission in the marketplace there?
I would say average sales price will go low balls, probably like 600,000, which would be average commission of about 15,000.
Okay, perfect. So let's work with 15,000. Now, these are NAR statistics pre-COVID, so they might be different. Okay. I don't know that they've recalculated on this side of all the changes we've made in our business coming out of COVID. Pre-COVID, according to NAR, the average seller from the time we get a listing agreement signed until we close escrow is 10 hours of our time. The average buyer is 30 to 40 hours of our time. Okay. And that's a fairly neutral market. I understand if we have shortage of inventory, we might be investing more time than that in our buyers, but we're probably not investing more time than that in our sellers if that counterbalance is there. So if we just take that $15,000 average commission, use the NAR statistic of 10 hours for a seller, your time is worth, if I did my math right, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but $1,500 an hour?
Correct.
And then I'll go high. I'll do the 40 hours because I do realize the market that most of us are in. That puts us at $375 an hour. I know attorneys that charge the $375 an hour, and we think it's ridiculous and outrageous. And I want you guys to realize that because of the industry that you've chosen, when you do your business well, your time is worth $375 to $1,500 an hour. And if you want to grow and you want to take your business to the next level, I'm going to recommend when you look for that first hire, you start looking at all of the things that are on your plate that somebody else could do for you. If we're looking overseas, if we're looking, say, for a virtual assistant, a cyberbacker, someone like that, they can be taking our tasks away for as little as $5 to $10 an hour, stateside money, right? If we want boots on the ground, somebody in person, California, what, probably 15, $20 an hour, Amy? Is that,
Yep.
I don't even know what your minimum wage is out there these days.
It'll probably be closer to $20 an hour for a
Okay.
admin.
And people, I hear this a lot as a coach. People are like, I can't afford to hire someone. And I'm going, but if your time's worth bare minimum $3.75 an hour, I'm going to suggest there's things on your plate, especially if you want to grow, you actually can't afford not to hire, right? It might be that time. Now, again, understanding we've got to be doing all the things that we know how to do, and we're still leaving things on the table. We're not getting to everything. We want to make sure that we do this wisely. And one of the biggest mindset issues I see is people going, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. And they put this natural ceiling on their business and they stop growing versus going, hold on a second. You know what? If I look at it through the lens of my time is worth $375 an hour at the bare minimum, it's time to grow and it's time to hire. One of the things that I see happen though, is we go out and we hire and we may not have the financial reserves to cover the first 90 to 180 days of this person coming on board. So make sure that you also have the financial reserves to do that when you bring someone on board. All right. Questions on all of this before I jump into the actual hiring and onboarding process? Because I feel like I'm talking a lot and just dumping info. So thoughts, questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you hire buyer's agents, I mean, I know everybody can do it differently, but what's like the industry model? Is it paying an hourly rate or?
So the question was, if you bring on a buyer's agent, what is the industry standard, or what's the best option as far as compensating that type of position? Would it be like an hourly rate or a split rate, or?
For a true buyer's agent, where you're adding them onto the team, you're going to have expectations of both them doing some lead generation on their own and lead follow-up. And best practices would say, and you're also going to be handing them off leads, right? Because you want to get those buyers off of your plate. It's going to be a commission only split. The rule of thumb is the house. That would be you as the business owner. You always, 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 always keep 50% of the money on a commission, no less than that. The reason being, depending on the model that you're following, but in general, you're the one that's mostly bringing in the leads. You're paying for their contract to close. You're paying for the marketing. You're paying for the administrative support. So that 50% that you keep on your side is covering the overhead. I just want you guys to hear that, because I know there can be some pushback, but it's covering your overhead of the benefit that buyer's agents get. Now, the buyer's agent's going to get up to 50%, and some teams modify that. And if there's an ISA involved in converting a lead, or depending on lead source, they might take it down to 40% or even 30%. But in general, it's going to be a 50-50 split. Where I see a lot of people mess up is they do have an ISA in the middle that's converting leads, and they take the 10% that goes to the ISA, they take it off of the business owner side instead of off of the buyer's agent side. If you have an ISA involved, your buyer's agent doesn't have to do nearly as much lead gen, so it comes off of their side. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Follow-up question on that, or are we good?
What's an ISA?
What's an ISA is the question.
Oh, great question. Thank you. Inside sales agent.
Oh.
And I'm going to define that just a little bit because it gets so misused in our industry. In that inside sales agent, outside sales agent term gets thrown around a lot. Basically, think of an ISA, if I did an umbrella covering of that. It's somebody who's either doing circle prospecting and outbound calling for leads, or there's somebody who works on all of the inbound leads and or our database and pipeline, nurturing and asking for business from them. So it can be either sides of that coin or both.
And is that person, in addition to getting the 10%, also being paid hourly, or is it just the commission?
Great question. You guys are awesome. Love interactive. So again, rule of thumb, I've seen it so many different ways. In general, an ISA is going to get paid a base salary, right? Just like, let's say 1,500, $2,000 a month, plus that 10% at closing on anything that they convert. The mistakes that I see happen is teams will come along and they'll pay them a flat fee for every appointment that they set. There's some secondary gain in there for an ISA, because then they go, cool, if I get $25 or $50 for every appointment I set, I don't care if I set a qualified appointment or an appointment that will stick, because they get rewarded for setting the appointment. We really want them to get rewarded on the end at that 10% for the closings. That way they're more diligent in their conversions. All right. Great questions. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the ISAs, because I see a lot of things of ISAs overseas, or, hiring them. Like, what's your opinion on that? Does it really need to be a local person who understands the market and can answer those questions? Or can it be that overseas person circle prospecting or?
Girl, so good. And I'm going to go back to that original piece of what's the problem you're looking to have the ISA solve for you. If you're looking for someone that's going to have in-depth conversations, be able to answer questions about the state of the market and things like that, you probably want a licensed ISA stateside in California, sitting next to you all day long, knowing your industry, knowing your business. If you're looking for someone who is going to be making sure that your database and your pipeline are nurtured, and then set appointments for when they have those deeper questions or they're ready to buy, sell, or invest, then overseas works great. It's going to be really, really challenging. And I would even say out of your marketplace, right? Not just overseas. If you get a company out there that has somebody stateside even, but they live in New York, they're not going to be able to answer questions for your local market anyway, right? So it's going to be boots on the ground, sitting in your office, not literally, right? But somebody there in your market that's licensed and knows the industry, or doing somebody that's more of an appointment setter, nurture type role, that's there to nurture them until they're ready to set the appointment with you.
Thank you.
Yep. What else? Good. All right. If something else comes to mind, I do have time at the end for Q&A. So if something pops up, just jot it down and we'll come back to that. So then last is our hiring and onboarding process. Oh my gosh, you guys, I can't tell you how many times I've seen well, I hired my cousin to come in and follow me around, and I'm just going to throw things at them, not literally, for whatever it is. And you know what? They're just going to be able to figure it out all on their own. And, I'm just going to pay them and they'll come in and they'll do it for me. No, probably not going to work. So we want to make sure that we have a basic job description and a job posting. What is it that they're going to be doing? And I'm not saying it has to be like every single thing, but we want to high level it, right? Is it database management? Is it lead management? Is it contract to close? If it's an ISA, are they going to be doing outbound calls, circle prospecting, calling FSBOs and expireds, or are they going to be nurturing our database and handling our inbound leads and nurturing our pipeline? Because they're different skill sets, but they're also different personality types, right? There's a difference between a showing agent who is licensed and goes out and opens doors and shows houses, but's never going to negotiate a contract for you, versus a buyer's agent who's going to do all of the above, right? Writing the contract, negotiating, and doing all of that, not just opening the doors. So you want to make sure that you have that job description and job posting at least somewhat outlined. And you also want to make sure that you have a good outline of their first 90 days of training. What benchmarks do you expect them to hit in those first 90 days? And I'll use an ISA as an example. In their first 90 days, we want to be focused on how many, by the end of 90 days, they should be doing X number of dials per day. They should be having X number of conversations per day. They should be adding this many people to our pipeline, and they should be setting this many appointments, right? So if that's what I expect from them at the end of 90 days, and I work backwards, what's the training I need to be creating and developing for them or putting them into in order to get them successfully to that outcome at the end of 90 days? And if they don't hit it, what am I going to do about it? Am I keeping them? Is it a black and white standard and expectation and they're gone? Right? Like, what is that? So that when we're hiring them and offering them a job, we're putting clear expectations in place. And then we also want to make sure that in our calendar that we're having time for daily check-ins. It can be a 5 to 10 minute conversation as they go through their first 90 days. And then setting aside an hour every week to go through weekly accountability. What did you learn? What questions do you have for me? What obstacles did you run into that we haven't had time to cover that I can help you solve the problem, right? We want to make sure we're putting those things in place. Sorry. What can go wrong? Everything. Do you like that one? I just should have put everything right at the top there. These are the things that I hear a lot on coaching calls. My rainmakers will come and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to micromanage them, so I'm not checking in on them daily. FYI, the way our team knows that we care about them is we actually check in on them with at least a, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything from me today? That is not micromanaging. That's showing somebody that I care. What that fear of micromanaging turns into is I'm hands off. I don't manage at all because you know what, Amy, if you have any questions or problems, you'll come to me, right? Probably not going to happen because Amy's kind of independent. She's going to go try to figure it out on her own. The other side of it is I start micromanaging and I go, Amy, what are you doing today? I want to see 15-minute breakdown of how you spent your time today so you can prove to me that you were a good hire and that you're doing the things that you should be doing. Because boy, if you're 1 minute off on meeting my expectations, I'm going to be really grumpy and you're fired, right? There's those two extremes. And as a coach, seeing this a lot, our rainmakers, you guys as entrepreneurs, as you start building your teams, we tend to go in one or the other directions. And we want to be somewhere in the middle of that. Okay. The other thing is not setting and holding clear standards and expectations. Oh, Amy, you know what? I don't care if you work from home or you work from the office, as long as your job gets done. Well, how would Amy ever know what my standard and expectation is of her on her job getting done if I don't tell her? In addition to that, if I want her to be available to, like, let's say contract to close, so she needs to be available during business hours of title and lenders and things like that, it may not matter if she works from home or in the office, but I certainly do want her to be available from 8 to 5, right? Or some version of that to be available for those business type questions. So making sure that we're setting those standards and expectations. Accountability, if I go back here, this weekly accountability right here, one of my fellow coaches, Jordan Freed, a few months ago had thrown this one out and I kind of attached to it, which is that accountability without clear expectations isn't fair. So if I'm turning around and I'm looking at Amy going, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you're obviously not an accountable person. And she's like, hey, dude, you never told me I needed to do those things. And if you did, you never gave me a clear expectation of when I would have them done by, then that's on me as the leader. That's not on her. Because unless she has some mad mind read skills that I don't know about, she can't read my mind. I have to be making sure that I'm communicating that stuff with her. All right. And if I wasn't clear and I realized that, then I need to circle back. I need to own it. I need to have that more difficult conversation of going, okay, great. I understand I didn't make this clear. and moving forward, let's have that conversation and make sure we're clear. All right.
Then
Those are the, yep.
on that same line, when you put together like the 90-day plan that you discussed for like what those expectations look like and working it back, then would you encourage having benchmarks along the way so that we kind of can measure success as we go?
Yes. Again, I'll do best practices. Even in corporate, when I worked in corporate so many years ago, it was every 30 days for that initial 90 days, right? So give or take on day 30, I'm sitting down and I'm having an extended one-on-one, going back through, these are all of the things you should have learned and taken on and, taken ownership over in your first 30 days. How are we doing? Right? Are you hitting it? Are you not hitting it? What training or resources do you need that maybe I haven't provided for you? Oh, you didn't hit any of them at all and you're not even showing up to work. I probably need to cut bait, right? Don't let it go all the way out to 90 days. And this one's my favorite. When the entrepreneur, the rainmaker comes back to me and they're like, yeah, but I know I was supposed to have that weekly accountability every week with them, but it was kind of hit and miss. So it's probably on me that they didn't actually do these things. A talented person, you're going to put the list in front of them and they're going to do it, and they're going to hunt you down or hunt down a resource to figure it out on their own most of the time. So whether we're showing up as the leader that they need us to be or not, if we've really made a great hire, they're working on figuring it out. They might not hit every single one, but they're not waiting to the end of that 30 days to raise their hand and say, hey, I need something from you. They're going, hey, I need some help. All right. So at the end of 30 days, the end of 60 days, the end of 90 days, I jokingly call it the dating, right? Like, we got engaged. I hired you. We got engaged. And the next 90 days are going to determine whether we get married or not.
98 fiance.
Don't be afraid to give the ring back. I'm just saying. Totally okay in those first 90 days. All right. What other questions do you guys have, if any? Thoughts, takeaways, ahas?
So hi, this is Claudia in Zoomland. So just to be clear, it sounds like what you're talking to us about here is building a team after we've already hired an assistant.
It could be all levels, right? If you haven't started, if you haven't even hired an assistant, then that would probably be your starting point. Once you've hired an assistant, what's your next hire? Right? Is your assistant an overwhelm and they need some help, so we need to hire another admin? Or are you at a place where you're like, oh, I have too many leads, so I need somebody to come in as a sales agent, right, as a buyer's agent, and take that off my plate? Or do I want to grow and I don't have enough leads, so I want to hire an ISA to come in and start generating more leads for me so my business can grow, right? So it's all those different levels. Great question, Claudia. Does that help you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling it was going to be like that. I just figured I'd ask. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Is everyone hired as an independent contractor? Is that just how we're operating, and we don't have to worry about anything else?
I'm going to give you like the best recorded answer for that one. And we can talk about it if you want. You should always check with your CPA or person who helps you with your business structure for the best way to compensate. That's that side of it, because you want to make sure that you're doing that for tax purposes and things like that, that you set it up well. The other side of it, especially with California HR rules and all of that stuff, I would probably even consider tapping into someone who specializes in HR, whether that's an HR attorney, whether it's somebody in your market center, somebody like that, but just making sure that you understand what the difference is, especially in California, you guys, because there are things in Arizona where I am that when I talk to you guys in California and tell me the HR rules, I'm like, that would never fly in Arizona, right? So making sure that you drill down into whether they're an independent contractor or a W-2 employee, what are those guidelines for you as a business owner to operate under? That was the most generic answer I could ever give on the planet.
Another obviously follow that advice, because that's super, like, talk to somebody who's a specialist in payroll and to your CPA, because that's going to be your bottom line. But a general rule of thumb is if you want them to show up at a certain hour, whether it's at their home or in the office, like you want to schedule, then it's not a 1099 employee. It's not an independent contractor. Once you start setting a schedule, it becomes a W-2.
Yeah. That's the tough part. Yeah. But thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Anything you wanted me to cover, Amy, that I didn't cover?
No, I think you did a good job covering just about everything. I've got a couple, if somebody's interested in like thinking about what kind of tasks you would hand off a plate that are transactionally related to either like listing or buyers, I've got a complete list of kind of how I started my business, like all the steps included in that process. What would get handed off to like a transaction coordinator? And then once I kind of moved my transaction coordinator to an admin, what then additional tasks I handed off just within those transaction processes. So if anybody wants that, you're welcome to message me and I can send that to you.
For sure.
Absolutely. And the other layer to that too, Amy, is understanding our profit and loss. And that would be a whole nother training. And if you want me to, I can, but using our profit and loss to actually help lead and guide us through who's my next hire, what's the compensation base for it, and when do I know that it's like part-time versus full-time, things like that. If our P&L can actually help guide those decisions, not just our production, not just our calendar. So that might be a good training.
It would be. And along those lines, would it be a realistic expectation if my first hire is going to be an admin? Is it a realistic expectation that when I hire that admin, that would allow my business to grow? Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you want an ROI on everything. Yep.
Yeah.
You want to hold your money accountable.
And same thing as you then progress, like buyer's agent, ISA, second admin, that it should cause business growth before you move on.
That's a whole nother class. I'm happy to do it, right? I mean, that's if you'd ever want me to, just let me know. And I write like it's the how do we hold our money accountable? How do we measure ROI? How do we use that profit and loss to inform marketing spend, lead generation spend, as well as compensation and growing the team? It goes both directions on that one. So
I have a question. I don't know if this is, I mean, obviously it's different for everybody, but is there like a general rule, like as agents, when you're spending money on these kind of things, like how much should you be netting from your gross revenue? Like how much should you be netting as, for your business? Is it like, as long as you're netting 50% or 75%, then you can, then maybe that's, you can hire on, or is there like any kind of number that a guide?
there is. And if Amy doesn't have this, I have it and I can send it to her. She can get it to you guys. I don't know, Amy, if you have the MREA 2, that it's a one sheet that has all those percentages on it.
I don't think I have the second one.
Okay. The reason why I'm hesitant to use what's in Millionaire Real Estate Agent from 04 is it's been updated to fit social media, and it's moved some things around that better fit the world that we live in real estate today than what we lived in 2004 when the book was originally written. And I have that breakdown. It's just a one sheet. I'm happy to share it, and then Amy can get that out to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Are we good? Anything else?
Anybody else in Zoom have questions?
I think we're good.
Very good.
All right.
Well, Christina, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you giving us some time to go over this. If you want any of those materials we talked about, either the list of kind of tasks or the MRE2 budget model that shows the percentages to each area, feel free to shoot me over a message, Facebook, text, whatever, or reach out to, if you're from a different office, feel free to reach out to the person, my contact there at your office that invited you to the meeting, and they'll get me your information so I can send those out. And do you have anything before you head off?
I'm good. Thank you so much for letting me be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Thanks,
See you guys
Christina.
later. You bet. Thank you.